Welcome one and all, it's time for yet another Kings of War tournament report. The Wild Charge, and this time it's 3rd edition. Hello there, and welcome to this tournament report. 2,000 points of red hot, sizzling action, 4 games, and we can't forget about Mr. Yellow Arrow to help guide your eyeballs around the screen as we take this journey together. So strap yourselves in. And as you admire this first picture, I'm surrounded by all my various documents here for this event, and more prepared than usual. I've even got my opponent's army lists here as well, so that's going to be handy. I've got my own list, of course, and I've got all the game results in intimate detail, so we can go through those as well. And since this is 3rd edition now, and I, among many people, haven't played that many games in this edition yet, there's bound to be 1 or 2 errors in there that pop up, so if you spot something, feel free to drop it in the chat, and hopefully I'll spot it and we'll be able to respond during the show. Jam Jar's in the chat already, with a picture of a dinosaur. There were some dinosaurs at this event actually, but I didn't play against any of them. There was an army with quite a few dinosaurs in it. So, this was at Element Games, this tournament put on by the Northern Kings. The Wild Charge, 2,000 points, 4 games, nothing too fancy going on, just a nice simple one, getting everyone into 3rd edition slowly, no weird rules, no special characters or anything like that. So, as you can see, it is the Abyssal Dwarves, and this first scenario is Dominate, by the way. And we'll go through my list as we go through my army on the screen here. So, starting on my left flank, we've got khususan there. We've got Gargoyles. We've got the Greater Obsidian Golem, who has got better but more expensive. That's the case for quite a lot of Abyssal Dwarf units actually. The Immortal Guard are better and more expensive as well. We've got 2 hordes of lesser Obsidian Golems. The one with the small crystal on has the Blade of Slashing, and the one with the large crystal on has the +1 to hit item, which is of course the Brew of Sharpness. So very dangerous in a fight, those guys. But we've got an Ironcaster behind there who has all his usual spells with the upgraded version, so he's got Surge, Fireball and Heal all together. So he's mostly going to be surging these guys forward, and when there's no opportunity to do that, he'll either be healing them or launching a Fireball at someone. We've got Brekkie hiding in there. See him right next to the Immortal Guard there. 2 regiments of Immortal Guard, no upgrades on them. So they're better now because they have regeneration, which is a nice boost for them because they're already really tough to shift with their Dash 17 Nerve Defense 5. We've got the half-breeds over here, and they have Jesse's Boots of Striding, so once per game they'll be able to just ignore all terrain when they're charging, which is nice. Then we've got the Anchor Heavy Mortar at the back there, looking to keep through my lines or over certain units and drop onto the enemy. So here's my opponent's army, and a very nice army it is too. This did win Best Painted, and rightly so. And this is a giant, if you couldn't tell. Nice wind-swept beard there. Very, very nice. Look at the detail on the toes. And then you can see here that it's an orc army. And a very tasty and very fancy clothed orc army it is too. So, I've got the list printed out here so I can tell you exactly what all the units are, accurately for a change. So, we've got a troop of skulks at the front there. Just a little bit of chaff. There are a couple of war drums at the back. There are 2 big hordes of long axe, which are like spear orcs, so they have phalanx, so I wouldn't want to be charging them in the front with my half-breeds. That would be a terrible idea. Between them, there is an axe regiment, which are your standard orcs, really. And behind them is one of the God Speakers. I think there are 2 God Speakers. One of them has the Inspiring Talisman, one has Shroud of the Saint, so quite a lot of healing potential in this army, because they do get their heal boosted. And one of them has Bane Chant. They both have Bane Chant, in fact. So the other one is over here, and he is next to the Crudger on a Gore. So just your average hero running around. And then there is a Chariot Legion, which is obviously going to hit very hard indeed, and it has the Potion of the Caterpillar, because anytime you have something with a base that big, it's going to be touching something when it charges. So very useful item for that. And there is just a Gore Rider Regiment there with the Blade of Slashing, just a cheap little upgrade for them. Got a few viewers dropping in already now. Just let me know in the chat if you see anything that interests you or any mistakes perhaps. And I've got a couple of close-ups of this army just to show you how nice it is. I mean, look at that. What do you want me to say about this? Very nice flesh, very nice clothing, just all round, very, very nice. And this army did come all the way from America as well, and didn't take too much damage in that journey, which is very nice. And lots of things are very nice, apparently. Turn 1. So, I am going first. With it being Dominate, I feel like going first, probably a good move here, because these two battle lines, it's going to be tough to kind of chew through on either side, I think. I've got lots of high defense, my opponent has lots of high nerve, so I think unless we do something silly and give up lots of flanks needlessly, which we shouldn't do because there's lots of terrain around as well, so it's probably going to be a bit of a slog. So if I can get forward fast and try and have the battle fought here rather than here, then I should be able to get my units into the centre, because my unit strength is more compact. I've got some big hordes and some regiments that are very small, whereas my opponent has units like this that are just huge, and that's a lot of unit strength on them, but it's difficult to get much of the unit within 12 of this point when you've got several units of that size. The chariots as well are another example of that. So slight advantage for me on how compact my unit strength is. I've sent Basusu over here, and obviously Basusu and Brekkie aren't going to provide any unit strength, so they can not exactly throw their lives away, but if they can stop something, and Basusu can win a fight against a lot of units, so if she can take something out and prevent it coming into the centre, and also threatening my flank, because I don't want to put units out there because they're never getting back again. I don't have that many units, so anything out there that's being stuck in a fight has no chance of scoring me any points later on, which would be a bad time. Gargoyles just perch there in case no one wants to push forward, just to discourage them a little bit, because a flank charge from Gargoyles isn't that much of a threat to a Horde, but if they also take something else at the front as well, it starts to get a bit spicy. There is this wood here hindering everything, but of course this unit has +1 to hit, so that would cancel out any hindrance. And you can see in relation to the chariots here, so Susu is just waiting for them and the cavalry to come out, and then she'll see who she wants to attack there. Over here the half-breeds are perched on a fence, but they have the boots of striding, so they're waiting for the giant. That's their preferred target. They don't want to just charge headlong into a phalanx unit. That would just be a terrible idea. And they don't want to charge that unit, that skulk troop, because half-breeds can't really take a hit, so they don't want any of these units charging them. So they're going to wait for the giant to come into range. We've got the speed advantage on him, and we're negating the speed advantage that the giant would have over all these other units by keeping the half-breeds there to target him. So they might be able to take him out in one go with a good roll, but not necessarily, but they'd at least do some decent damage to him. And you can see with the way the orc line is set up here, it's going to be very hard for me to get into flanks of any of these hordes. So I'm going to try and look for multi-charges, if possible. Because if you're just doing a few wounds to these things, there's so much healing behind them that they're just going to get most of it back. And for the enemy, from their point of view, they don't want to be putting tiny amounts of wounds onto my regenerating units, which are all here, and my heroes. You don't have to worry about Gargoyles regenerating, because as soon as they take damage, they're just toast anyway. And then this big wall of defense 6. If you're going to be chipping away anyone, it should probably be them, because I've only got heal 3 on the Ironcaster, which is pretty feeble compared to the healing potential that the Abyssal Dwarves used to have with Dravak as well, which he's of course disappeared now, he doesn't exist. So turn 1 for the orcs, and they're pushing a bit. Of course the chariots aren't worried about being in the terrain because they have the caterpillar, and there's the boar rider unit. So Susan is going to have to deal with one of these, and the gargoyles could potentially block up the chariots for a turn. That's an option. In the centre, you can see that there's not much of a push forward, even though it is dominate. The orcs aren't in that much of a rush to get forward. So obviously they're being very careful They don't want to give up flanks with these phalanx units. And they really just want to draw me into the middle here and then encircle. So I'm going to have to do my best to block up these flank attacks from the giant and the chariots with the units I've got available here, and then push everything into the middle and just camp in this area and hopefully win the slugfest. Turn 2. So Susan immediately targets a unit she can actually kill, which is the Gore Rider Regiment. She could definitely, with a good roll, take them out in 1 turn. And you'd expect her to kill them in 2 probably, but she only does 4 damage and wavers them, which is a pretty good result. And you can see here that the Greater Obsidian Golem is willing to take a front charge from the chariots so that the Gargoyles can be used blocking up this unit here instead. So I could make a full advance. And the Great Obsidian Golem isn't worried about that charge at all. It's definitely not going to take him out in 1 go without the most obscene roll ever. And over here, everything's pushing up a bit. I'm keeping everything out of charge range of the giant though. That's the only thing I'm totally avoiding at all costs, because that's what the half-breeds are for. Just waiting for him to creep into range and then in they go. So I've got my golems there. The gargoyles blocking that unit. So there are charges available to the enemy, but this unit can't join in. So I think these 3 might all have an available charge next turn. But I don't want to be multi-charged really. That's the main thing, because I don't think any of these units will die immediately in the first hit from most of what's available here. So multi-charges, avoiding that is the main priority, which is why these are positioned here, and then maybe I'll get a multi-charge next turn, depending what the enemy prioritise. So there's that, and the mortar puts 5 damage onto one of the long axe hordes, which is a nice start, but I'm sure they'll be healed. But what you've got to do though, if your opponent has heal, don't just think, well, it's just going to get healed back, what's the point? Because you're forcing them to use that heal spell, which means they can't then be bane chanting something else. So even if it seems like they're just going to get the wounds back, you're tying up their caster for a turn, so you can look at it that way as well. And on to turn 2 for the orcs. So the chariots straight into the greater golem, obviously. And hopefully they won't do too much damage. That very nice model there. And here the Crudger is actually moving into position to provide backup against the Susu, but can't reach a spot where he can actually see the Susan there. So that's alright. And the Gargoyles are obviously under attack, which is fine. It also gets the unit off this wall unless they fall backwards after they commit the kill. And you can see the only unit that actually charges is the Skulk Troop in here. So they're really holding back, which is risky in some ways, but it is going to allow that kind of encirclement tactic, because I will want to hold my line here and then next turn maybe go for charges. I was hoping if this unit didn't charge, I would have been able to have a double charge with the 2 golem hordes there. So next turn I'm going to have to throw out some roadblocks to prevent enemy multi-charges coming. So really we're just going to be exchanging chaff and then just charging in bit by bit probably, because I don't think we're going to allow multi-charges too much on each other. The giant, I think, has come into range of the half-breeds now, so they are going to be able to charge him if I decide that next turn is the turn to go in. Skulks actually do 2 damage to a defense 6 unit in combat, which is quite comical, and it's also very annoying because I don't have much heal, so that's bad. And look at this, 12 damage on the Greater Obsidian Golem. That is quite a healthy amount, but they can't remove him. Gargoyles are of course toast, but this unit do not move backwards. So they are on top of the wall, which means I can charge them without touching the wall now throughout the rest of the game. It's not going to make a difference next turn because this unit will be hindered by the woods anyway, but later on if I've got units here, multiple units fighting them, and they are on this line, I think they would rather be fighting back there just behind the wall, so that anyone else fighting them on this side would later be hindered. it's a good spot to be in. So it's not going to help them being on the wall, because as soon as they charge off it, they become hindered regardless. It's just the same as charging through it. So turn 3 for Abyssal Dwarves, and Susan, 2 more damage onto the cavalry and wavers them again. So that's okay, that'll do as a result, I think. And Great Obsidian Golem, 5 wounds on the chariots, so it'll take away their Thunderous Charge, but because of that obscene level of damage last time, they would like their chances of killing it next turn, so I have to factor that into my thinking here and decide what to do about it. So you can see that I've sent in 1 horde of golems into this horde, and there's 8 damage done there, which is a good start. Brekkie has charged into this troop to stop them flanking my other units that have charged in, because that would be a bad time. 6 damage there. And the Immortal Guard, they're obviously not going to win this fight against a horde, but 2 damage just to start to stop that unit from getting in anywhere spicy. And the half-breeds have charged into the giant. So, they've done 9 damage as well, which is quite nice, but they don't kill him. So, they're tempting, because there is an option for this unit to flank charge the half-breeds now. It's a bit fiddly, but I think it is possible if the wardroom gets out of the way, if they go backwards an inch, I think with a pivot, they could possibly touch that unit first, because it is very, very close there. So I think it is theoretically possible for them to make it into the flank of those half-breeds, but they would end up all the way over here, which would be bad for the scenario, and it would leave this big hole in their lines, so I'm not sure whether they would even try to take that. We'll see though. See there, the 9 damage is quite okay, that's decent. They obviously use their boots to achieve that, but the giant may well kill them in retaliation. It depends how many attacks it gets. And of course these golems take out the skulks quite handily. So that's how it's looking. So it's not too unhealthy at the moment. I'm blocking off the encirclement a bit, and I've got all my units in scoring positions here. I think it's pretty much these 4, and my opponent doesn't have too many within range of it at this stage. So we'll see. I've got the positional advantage slightly, but I need to hold on to these flanks so that I can't just get crushed. Okay, turn 3. You can see here that I think this unit here could have actually backed off an inch and allowed this guy to charge Basusu, but maybe my opponent didn't consider that as an option. Christopher says, so glad I finally got to see one of these reports live. Well done to you. It's obviously quite an honour to be posting in the live chat there. And in the centre, my opponent doesn't have any weird charges available, other than possibly that one I was describing here, which would have messed up the lines a bit and taken them really far from the centre and left the Immortal Guard untouched. So, I should point out as well, not sure I'll remember when it was used in each game by each player, but there is a reroll of 1 dice per game. So, if you roll a double 1, you can reroll 1 of those, which is what most people will be using it for. Or you may want to use it for something like a crucial headstrong roll. Or the only time you use it for something totally different is if you haven't had a good opportunity to use it throughout the game and you're in the last turn and you think, well, I might as well use it now because there's no other time that it's going to come up. I'm pretty sure I've used it on an artillery roll that hits on a 5 at some point in the past because there was never going to be another opportunity to use it at an event. So, what do I expect to happen here? I don't really expect any of these units to die. The half-breeds, they could die if the giant gets an obscene number of attacks. So the greater golem goes down. It wasn't the fault of this turn, though. It was last turn when they got that obscene amount of damage on him. So he's dead now. So I'm going to have to prepare for their arrival now. And I have got a plan, which you'll see next turn. So, you can see that this horde has actually healed back to 1 wound. So there's tons of healing on offer here. And the fact that I haven't been able to open up any multi-charges means that it's going to be difficult to break through here. But I'm not too disheartened yet. There's a bit of damage being plinked onto these units, but they're still fairly safe for the moment. This unit takes 8 damage though, so next turn they're going to be in trouble. unless they can regenerate a lot of wounds. And the half-breeds do actually get killed. They only take 7 damage though, so it was just 2 really nice nerve rolls to get rid of them. When I say really nice, I mean slightly above average, not ridiculous nerve roll. And so you can see the 2 units that were holding the flanks are down, but I've still got plan B, and Susan is still alive. So what I'm going to do, Susu is going to abandon this fight here. He's going to fly over there and take away this unit's thunderous charge, because that unit isn't really important right now. I could maybe kill them later, they're nowhere near the scoring zone. Then I can turn these golems and face in this direction, move them forwards. I could potentially even surge them if I want to get them even further. So they're going to be blocking up this unit, so this Chariot Legion can't target this unit here. And it means, because even if I charge a double charge there into that unit, I'm not sure I would have killed them, and with the angles of the units, it's not actually possible to do that either, because this unit is at a slight angle compared to these ones. And I think that was because of the way I positioned the gargoyles in front of them. So that's something to consider as well. If I'd tilted the gargoyles in a different direction slightly, then possibly this unit could have ended up facing a different way, and maybe your opponent doesn't always think about pivoting them afterwards, so it's possible they could have been left in a more chargeable or more double chargeable position. So these guys are going to come over here, face this way, take away the thunderous charge with Basusu, so they've got very little chance of killing that unit in one hit. And I could hit them back, and then hopefully I could kill them that turn. And over here, I'm going to be charging these 2 Immortal Guard both into the front there, because that's going to push them along a bit, which is going to prevent the giant from fighting anything over here. It means that he's not going to have enough pivots, so he's going to have to flank charge the wounded Immortal Guard next turn, who are probably going to die anyway. So, turn 4, Susan, part 1 of the plan, into the rear of the chariots. Doesn't do too much damage though, really poor roll there, but just enough to take away their thunderous charge, which was the important thing. The elementals are facing that way, and the Ironcaster is hiding behind them. So there's not enough space for them to fit in there to attack those elementals. These ones get the horde of orcs back up to 9 wounds, and it looks like I've healed them a little bit. Brekkie does more damage to this unit. I think he probably should have killed them by now because they're on 10, but it's the war drums that are boosting them up with their nerve. It's very difficult to chew through them. 2 units of Immortal Guard put that unit up to 9, but again, really high nerve. This unit regenerate a bit, but I think with 6 damage on them, whatever attacks them, they were going to die next turn. So we're forcing the giant to charge them because he doesn't have any other options now. And it's still looking okay. We're still holding on for now. Turn 4 for the orcs. So, double charge on Basusu. She was willing to take this risk of accepting that the Crudger and the Gore Riders could charge her in order to prevent that unit having its thunderous charge. And of course that unit makes the charge. They have to. There's not much else they can do there. The giant of course has to do this. So when you present your opponent with one option, you just have to make that option as bad as possible. And in this case, I think it was quite a good option for me here, the giant charging this unit, because they were going to die anyway. It does allow this unit to charge into these Immortal Guard, but if I didn't bring these guys into play, the giant would have had a flank charge on the golems down here. So, before the damage is dished out, I'm thinking this unit will survive, this unit will survive, he'll be fine, that unit's toast, that unit will survive. So let's see how true that is. Got some healing back there as well, so they're down to 4 wounds. So Brackie gets wavered, which is annoying. And look at this. 9 damage onto the Lesser Obsidian Golems, and they are killed by the chariots. So I think the chariots did about 11 hits on the Golems, and then they were wounding on 5s. And they converted 9 of them into wounds. What can you do? So they are toast. So Susu threw her life away for no reason because, there we go, Susan is also dead, and it was for no reason, because it didn't help in the end at all. That unit still died. These golems also die, which isn't nice. They were on 9 damage, so again, slightly above average nerve roll to get rid of them. And over here, some damage on that unit, but they're fine. And that unit, of course, dies. So it's pretty much game over now. And I was really expecting these two units to both live, especially this one. They were undamaged. They were taking a disordered charge from chariots. Oh dear. So had they lived, I would be hoping to kill them next turn, and then turn round to face this menace, so I would have still had some support. It would have still been difficult, especially if this unit had still died. But it would have definitely been a better position than it is right now, because Brackie's wavered. This unit isn't going to kill that horde in one round now, and the Ironcaster, all he can do is maybe fireball somebody. Yes, Stefan, the paint job of the Orc army is truly amazing. Turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarves now. So the Ironcaster just moves out of the charge range, the charge arc, should I say, of the chariots, and gives them a light toasting with its fireball. Not enough though. The Mortar hasn't really been hitting much this game, that's why you haven't seen pictures of it. And more damage inflicted on this horde, but can't kill them. That might be a waver, actually. I'm not sure whether that symbolises waver or not. It might do, it looks like a chicken, doesn't it? And very short turn. Turn 5 for the Orcs. So, flank and a front on Brekkie. It was wavered from last time, that's not this turn's damage, he's going to take more shortly. The Ironcaster gets charged by the Gore Riders, and they're going to get crunched, those Immortal Guard there. So Brackie only gets wavered, which is nice. And, oh, we're still on... Or is that... No, this is my turn 5 now. Or maybe that's just a random picture of a turn 5 dice that shouldn't be there. Anyway, Brackie is wavered. There's his wounds. The Immortal Guard are dead. There's not much for me to do because he is wounded now. Oh, that's right, my opponent runs out of time at this point. So I might have 2 turns, but I've not really got any units to use. So we'll see how it goes. The Mortar kills off the cavalry, so that's some points for me at least. And there's nothing else I can do. So that's going to be the end of the game. And the Ironcaster and Brackie survive. So that was all going so swimmingly, because as you can see, since my opponent timed out there, it would have actually been very, very dicey for him had, let's just go back a bit, had the Golems here survived. Timing out there would have been potentially catastrophic, especially if this unit was still alive as well. So very unfortunate with the damage rolls, and slightly above average nerve rolls, but not crazy. It was the damage on that unwounded unit that really did it. And I think my game plan, it was semi-successful up to a point, because I think I was playing the scenario, obviously, rather than killing things, because I think I only managed to kill this unit in the entire game and the skulks, so not much at all. But in terms of the scenario, it was actually going alright up until the end. But when you play 100% for the scenario, you don't arrow in focused on killing things, then if something goes wrong in the scenario, you're going to end up with a very low score because you haven't killed much. Of course, the other thing that can possibly go wrong is that if you concentrate too much on killing and end up losing the scenario, you lose even more points. So you always need to strike a balance. But in general, it's good to be trying to take units off every turn. And I wasn't really in a position to do that because the Orc units were so tough, there was so much healing, and there weren't really options for multi-charges without leaving myself open to flanks, which would have been catastrophic. So there's the end of that one. And before we go into the start of this game, I've got the score sheet here. So I didn't get any bonus points at all for kills because I didn't even reach the threshold of 300 kill points. So I got minimum points for that round, which is the perfect start. And going into round 2. So obviously, after minimum points, on the bottom table, which you can see there is table 12. So I don't mind too much though, because look, it's lava, it's a nice home field advantage for the Abyssal Dwarves, and they're up against their evil cousins, the Dwarves. And you may recognise this dwarf army from my battle reports. That's because this is pretty much the army that I've been practicing against. So we'll see whether our practice sessions have led to any interesting tactical developments here. Of course, the last game I played against them was with the Goblins, I think. So, this scenario, by the way, is... what's this one called again? Smoke and Mirrors. So you put down 5 objectives each on your opponent's half, and they are secretly worth a particular amount of victory points if you sit on them at the end of the game. Some of them are worth 0, some are worth 1, and some are worth 2, and you reveal 1 each at the end of each round. So, you can see all the tokens are down, upside down, so you can't see how much they're worth yet. But I can reveal that the ones I placed on my opponent's half over there, I put the one that's worth 2 right in the centre because I don't want to spread out that much. This army doesn't work so well if it's spread out. I want the Ironcaster around everything that he can surge, and I don't have that much universal inspiring really. So I want it pretty compact, and you can see that my opponent has actually got 3 pretty potent fighting blocks in his army. So I've got the 2 point there, a 1 point there, because I want to be controlling this area at the end, so I can get 3 points for that area. I've put a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 1 all the way in this corner. So if my opponent wants to hold it, he's going to have a unit that's pretty much out the game. So that's the thinking there. And then because I don't know what my opponent has put down on my side, I've had to put some Immortal Guard over on this side, just in case that's worth fighting for. And the Gargoyles are just hiding, because they're going to jump on an objective right at the end, probably. And the Half-Breeds over here, because there are objectives here as well that might be worth something at the end. And I need to put some kind of deterrent down. And I don't want to let my opponent know for certain that this is worth 0 by not deploying anything over here. So, we've got the Half-Breeds there, we've got the Gargoyles hiding from all the enemy shooting. They're just going to be hiding for the entire game. I'm going to fight... With this army, in these scenarios, I'm accepting that I'm going to be fighting the battle 85 points down, and then the Gargoyles will just swoop onto an objective in the last turn or 2. So that's the plan with them. Basusu is over here as well. She can easily be redeployed to another area, as can the Half-Breeds really. So there's nothing that's too committed over on this flank. In the middle is where I've gone for the ultimate wall of death, which is all the Golems, the Ironcaster, Brackie, and some more Immortal Guard. Over on this side we've got Immortal Guard just guarding the Mortar. And my opponent. So, this is on his left flank as I look at it. So there are 2 Elemental Hordes, and I've got a copy of this list here. So the Elemental Hordes, one of them has Liliana's Tear, which takes away Brutal and Shattering. I can't remember which one that is. It might be this one here. I think it is. And then there are, in this little block here, there is, what is that guy called again? The Steel Juggernaut. So he's a pretty handy option. He's got a ranged attack, and he's pretty good at fighting, I think, as well. Then there is an Ironclad regiment there, which are the lesser of the 2 Dwarf standard regiments. There's 5 ones. And behind them, there is a Brach troop. And the Brocks, there are 3 Brach troops in the army in total. You can see one of them here guarding the artillery battery, which is made up of 2 cannons and an organ gun. And there is the other regiment of Ironclad behind them. Over on this flank, we've got the 3rd troop of Brocks. There's the regiment of Brocks, and they have the Boots of Striding, so they're opposite my Half-Breeds, who also have the Boots of Striding, with fighting over these woods, so we'll see how that goes. The Brock Lord here as well, and he has the Mournful Blade. So that's pretty scary. It's basically the perfect counter to Brackie and Basusu, because they don't want to end up anywhere near him, because he could quite feasibly take them out in one hit with that weapon. It doubles your attacks against individuals. So very, very scary against my list that relies on those 2 individuals quite a bit, so I want to keep them away from him at all costs. And is there anything else on the list here that I've missed? There's a Stone Priest with Bane Chant and the Conjurer's Staff, and I imagine he's behind the Elementals. So, that is the battle line. And turn 1. And I am going first, and I've moved up the half-breeds here. So these Brocs will be hesitant to step towards the woods. They'll be hesitant to go in them, definitely, because they don't want to take the first hit. When both these units have boots of striding, you could end up with a bit of a stalemate. And Khususan is just hiding from everybody behind the woods. Doesn't want to be charged, but wants to be in a position to threaten units over there. These Brocs want to come forward. They have to worry about Susan potentially charging them, and she's also in a spot to hop behind this piece of terrain as well next turn, depending on what the enemy do. In the middle, you can usually see that one of my Shambling units ends up further forward than the rest, because it's usually, unless the enemy has some really long-range flank options going on, surging something up is usually worth getting that extra bit of distance with it. Especially when you're up against this kind of mini gun line here, 3 war machines staring right at my lines. Brekkie has just moved right up there. He's not sure if he's in charge range of anything, but he is inviting the enemy to try and shoot at him, perhaps, because it's -1 to hit him with him being individual. And he's not going to block them up, because even if somehow he takes all the artillery damage in the world and gets wavered, he can still just back up out the way, because he's fast. And over here, the Immortal Guard aren't going forward at all, because I want this block to come towards me. And then they're not going to be involved in the fight if they do that, because there's this huge piece of impassable terrain. So anything that's fighting on this side is stuck. They're all, apart from that Brach troop, 3 quite slow units there. 2 Shambling units and an Infantry regiment. None of them are getting back into the game if they come down here, which makes me think that maybe this could be a 2-point objective if the enemy have put this many resources into coming down here. So the Mortar goes for one of the elemental hordes and puts 4 damage on it. This is the one that's more likely to end up fighting my Golems, so I wanted to chip away at that one. It's that unit there. So, nothing too dramatic yet. And turn 1 for the Dwarves. So, the Brock Lord is here, which means I can't really justify sending my characters in for any of these fights, because if I kill those Brocs, I'm going to lose at least one of these heroes immediately. As soon as they get fought by him, I have to assume that they will die instantly. So it's not worth the trade-off for that regiment or for that troop of Brocs. Can't see that unit, but the fact that they've angled themselves in this manner does leave something nice and open. First, as soon as he did that, I was thinking, okay, half-breed, straight up there, turn inwards, and now the enemy have an issue. Do they turn to face me, and they're going to get charged in the front, or do they continue with their mission over here and maybe get flanked? In the centre here, you can see there's some possibility of movement with this Brach troop, but I think they end up just staying out of everyone's charge range. They don't want to come into Brackie's charge range, because he would have been able to charge them, and Brackie would have been out of sight of the Brock Lord, who is the perfect counter to him. So that would have been a bad move, so I think it's good that he's taken them out of charge range there. Over here, the Elemental slowly trundling forwards. And what does the gun line accomplish this time? 6 damage onto the Greater Obsidian Golem. Which isn't that scary, considering who he's likely facing down against. He's really just absorbing the damage like a sponge going forwards towards the enemy. And there's no real scary combat units that are opposite him. Brocs, in a troop form especially, they don't really have the hitting power to worry some big defense 6 blob like him. You can see this is a bit of a wall of death, but they're not really in a position to threaten my main battle. That unit presumably has been surged, which is why. So, you can see how it's looking. I have to be careful. I can't just advance straight forward with these golems, because there's the option of flank charges coming in that side now, especially with surge on the table. So I have to be careful. And I can't just advance straight forward on this side either, because there's the potential of flank charges from Brocs, and there's the Brock Lord there as backup. So a bit of a pincer movement potentially here, so I've got to be careful how I position myself. And I can't just sit still even, because there is this little war machine battery. So I'm going to have to come up with something to cover the eventualities here. So we turn over some tokens. And I turn over the one right in the centre on my side, which turns out to be worth 2 points. So that's this one here. So I've got a 2-point objective right in the middle of my blob, which is very nice. So that means, as soon as I saw that, I thought, you know what? That's the most valuable objective on my side of the table. All these units want to go forward and fight. So next turn, this unit of Immortal Guard is going to turn round and start going this way. I don't need to fight on this side because that's not the 2-pointer anymore. I know the 2-pointer's there, so these guys are coming back to the middle. And if someone wants to traipse all the way down here to fight the Mortar and get a 1-point objective, that's okay with me. They're going to be out of the game. And they're so slow. Dino Titan Edition. Man, a live show. Yes, it is live. And it's juicy and spicy at the same time. So, 2-point objective, and my opponent uncovers the 1-point objective all the way in the back corner. So, he does have a good option with the Steel Juggernaut, who could potentially go and get that and still affect the game with its ranged attack. So, turn 2. And the move I told you about with the half-breeds. So, they are open to being charged by the Brach Lord, but does he want to do that? Because that takes him away from his juiciest targets, which are my individuals, and he would like to chase them around and just deter them from attacking things. And if he's all the way out here, that's going to give me 1 turn where my individuals can just take out his war machines, pretty much. And then he'd have to spend another turn getting back into range to fight them. So, may not want to go for that. He's got a dilemma though. I've pushed up as far as I can without giving up flanks here. And I've made sure that there's no charge arcs available for flanks, and this unit's got its flank covered by the Immortal Guard. And Khususan is hiding behind this. She can be seen by the Brocs. That's it. It was either that or be seen by the Brach Lord with the Mournful Blade, so she decided the regular Brocs weren't worth it. Brekkie has just plopped himself right in front of the artillery battery, as if to say, shoot at me. And Greater Golem has moved up, and it's been healed a couple of wounds as well. Rather than surging it because it wasn't going to reach anything next turn and it was still going to be in charge range next time. These guys have turned to a bit of an angle to protect their flank with this terrain, so they can't be flanked into from any of those elementals now. So that's why no surging was done here, because it doesn't really help any situation, because if you look on this side, if they get surged forward, suddenly they're being flanked. If he gets surged forward, it doesn't help him at all because he's already within charge range of the cannons. And these guys could have potentially left their flank open if they were surged, so it was time for a bit of healing. And the Immortal Guard over here, turning in, like I said, heading back in this direction so they can sit on this objective at the end. Got plenty of time to get there. Next turn they'll be able to go at the double straight forward and abandon this flank. Turn 2 for the Dwarves. So, lots of Brocs going in. So the Brach troop that was here gone into the Golems there. The Brach Regiment have gone into the Immortal Guard. The fact they haven't double charged anything means that I'm probably going to survive. This unit may even survive. They are -17, it's 5. Not the easiest to kill. Khususan has been charged as well. And I'm generally happy when I see my opponent making single charges against my unwaverable units. So we'll see how that turns out. Over here you can see the elementals have turned away from that area now, looking back in this direction. But they're kind of holding up the Brocs behind them a little bit, who could be helping out. They can't really use their speed while they're stuck behind. And my opponent is also going to use his Stone Priest to surge this unit forward in a minute. There is a possibility with a really long surge you could make it into them. But I'll tell you why I think that's a bad idea in a minute. So over here, the Brach Lord has gone round the back to just sit here to act as a deterrent to stop anyone picking off the war machines. If he wasn't there, next turn one of the cannons is just being eaten. But as it is now, is it worth me killing off a cannon with Brekkie and then this guy killing Brekkie? I'm just losing Brekkie for the cost of 1 cannon, which is totally not worth it. So there's no reason for me to attack them now. So the deterrent has worked. I'm going to have to use him to attack someone else. Get him away from that guy. And Khususan is going to be stuck fighting them. Angle there. So this unit does attempt a ridiculous long-range surge, which I don't think was likely to succeed at all, and they end up in this position. which is pretty bad because they are now in a spot where they're already on 4 damage. They're going to get front charged anyway by the lesser golems, and the greater golem now has the possibility of turning towards them, moving up, and then being surged into their flank, which is going to be good night elementals. And then they'll both be able to pivot in to face that unit. So, very bad ending position for that unit there. And Susan takes 3 wounds from the Brach troop, which is okay. And just bits of damage 4 on this unit. Only 3 here, which is really disappointing actually. I would expect the Brocs to do more than that. I wouldn't expect them to die in 1 round, but I would expect more than 3. So there's how it's looking. And not much death yet, but that could be about to change. So we turn over some tokens at the end of the turn. And this is on my right flank. There is a 1-point objective there, which is really close to the Gargoyles. They're back here somewhere. So that could be an option for them to jump on at the end. And my opponent turns over the 0-point objective that he's got lots of units round on his, as I look at it, the left flank. So turn 3 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So the half-breeds, because those Brocs didn't kill the Immortal Guard, the half-breeds were able to charge out of the woods into the flank, and combined with that counter-charge, they are dead. Toast. The Brach troop are taken out by the lesser golems. So really, those Brocs didn't get anything for their money here. They've thrown their lives away and they haven't killed anything. I think they had the opportunity to double charge this unit last time. I think that was an option that opened to them. And they probably would have killed it in all likelihood. And then they could have turned, and they probably would have lost both units anyway, because they would have had to open up some flanks or some rear charges possibly. And even if they didn't, they would have still been taking an unhindered charge with the boots of striding here and the golems. So they may have lost both the units anyway, but they would have killed this unit first. So if you're going to, if you think you're going to die anyway, take something down with you, I would say, is a good idea. Or just don't make the move in the first place if you think it's going to be a bad trade. Possibly hold back until something else helps out. Susu does a bit of damage to them, not enough to worry them though. Brekkie, instead of fighting war machines, so he takes himself away from the Brach Lord because he doesn't want to be attacked by that. So he just charges into this part of the enemy battle line, 3 damage onto the surviving elementals. So it's a start on them, and he's now safe from the Brach Lord. He'll get hit by something else, but he would much prefer that. So the elemental surged into the flank of the other. The golem surged into the elemental's flank there. Lesser golems in the front. Toasty elementals. Dead. And these Immortal Guard are just making their journey back into the middle to come for this objective. Hello, Raphael's in the chat. And that's how it's looking now. So a lot of Brocs wiped out. Elementals gone. It's looking very healthy right now, but depending on the value of some of the other objectives, you never know. Because I still want this 2-point objective, and I've had to turn away from it somewhat because of the battle line that's been drawn here, and there's a 0-point objective here that we don't want to be fighting over. So somehow we've ended up with the battle line here. There is a 2-point objective here, but I am going to have to be careful to make sure I've got units where they need to be in the last few turns. Turn 3 for the Dwarves. So the Brach Lord, he decides to charge the Greater Golem because it was already wounded, so he might be able to finish it off with some really good luck there. And these Brocs countercharging khususan. The War Machines are going to be able to shoot again. Over here, the Elementals have countercharged against Brekkie, which I'm not convinced is the best move there because they've now opened up their flank to this horrible mess here. So probably not good because they're unlikely to take out Brekkie in 1 round, I think, the Elementals. I think they only have Crush 1. So he's not been hurt yet, I think. Or if he was, then he would have regenerated back, so I don't think he's got any wounds on him there. These guys are heading down here. So there's not much for them to do really other than get close enough to the mortar that it can't shoot them. And what does the artillery battery do this time? Chips a bit of damage onto these golems, but not much at all. And then damage onto these ones, getting them up to 10, but doesn't peel them off yet. So, over here, not much is being accomplished there, I think. Susan gets wavered, which is okay because she's really fast. She can just back away and let someone else charge them. The Brock Lord does a bit more damage to the greater golem. Nothing to worry him too much yet. And Brekkie takes 9 damage, but thankfully does not die. He does inspire himself, obviously. So it wasn't a guarantee that he was going to die there. And the tokens are turned over. So this is actually worth 0, but there wasn't a token that had 0 on it. So we just used the 3-1 for the 0. So this is in my right-hand corner. So the objective there is worth nothing, which means I can abandon that area. You can see where it is there. So the gargoyles are just primed as soon as all the shooting's gone, because if they pop out before the guns are down, they will just die and deprive me a victory point. So they're just hiding, and then in the last turn, they're going to jump out here, when hopefully the guns will be dead. And my opponent reveals the 0-point objective in the woods on that same flank. Turn 4, Abyssal Dwarves. So Susan gets out the way. Half-breeds charge into the wounded Brocks, finish them off quite handily. Brekkie charges back this way and takes out one of the cannons. Greater Elemental countercharges the Brock Lord and does some decent damage to him there. And the Golems flank charge the Elementals and eat them for breakfast. Mortar gets a hit this time on this unit that are walking towards it slowly. And they are on 8 damage now, so they don't really want to be involved in the fight anymore. And looking very healthy, but the scenario is still not won. I still need to break through here to get to that 2-point objective. Turn 4 for the Dwarves. So the Steel Juggernaut, who spent quite a while heading over here onto this 1-point objective, now fires back. Or I don't think he fires this turn, actually. I think he was just moving there that turn. So we've got some more Brocks, the ones that were backing up the Elementals, into the Golems. The Brock Lord into Susan. And he's going to do some nice damage to her, probably. The Elementals here get killed by shooting. Keep calling them Elementals. The Lesser Obsidian Golems get killed here. And there's also a bit of shooting wounding the Greater Golem, but he's still healthy. These ones take a bit of damage, but not too much from the Brocks. And Susan is dead, as expected. As soon as this guy with his blade hits any individuals, they're just going to be toast. So I've had to hide from him so far. He's wounded, and he's in a position to be charged by the Immortal Guard next turn, so he could go down. They don't have very high defense, these Brock characters, or the Brock units in general. So this unit sitting on that objective there, which means it's going to be worth 1 because their 2-point objective is already here. So there we go, that's worth 1 point. And my opponent uncovers the 2-point objective in the middle, which I need to get to, so I need to chew through the war machines and get to these Ironclad. Turn 5, so the Brock Lord is dead. The Immortal Guard just finish him off. The half-breeds charge into one war machine and kill it. And I believe that Brackie killed the other one. And then he ends up here. And these Golems, they kill the Brock troop that charged them, and then they've turned back towards the centre because there's no enemies threatening them from that side at all now. I've got these Immortal Guard that started off on my far left flank have now worked their way all the way back in to sit on the 2-point objective. These Immortal Guard here are going to go and sit on that 1-point objective in a minute. And you can see that my Greater Golem has just pushed up onto the hill here. So next turn it'll be in a position to try and affect the game, because I need to clear that unit off the objective. And looking pretty safe now. Turn 5. There's still a chance that I could fail to win this game though. So the Ironclad are just sitting pretty on an objective, too close for the Mortar to shoot them now. And the Ironclad here Waver Brekkie, which is not too bad because of course he can get out of the way quite easily. And not much to be said about that dwarf turn because they barely have anything left alive, but I do need to get that objective in order to win the game though. So, turn 6. Of course, the half-breeds charge in there. The Greater Golem was surged to join in with the combat. And so, the way this is possible is that Brekkie has to get out of the way, which is fine. He's wavered, he just turns and goes backwards in this direction. The Greater Golem moves forwards to look at the unit, which means that when the half-breeds charge them, they then don't slide all the way down because the Golem is partially blocking. So that leaves space for the Golem to then be surged into them, with Brekkie nicely out the way. So the double charge on that unit, with the Gargoyles perched on that objective that they've just jumped onto now. That unit is dead. I've now got the 2-point objective there. So it's going to be a win definitely at this stage, unless there's some ridiculous thing that happens. And turn 6 for the Dwarves, so the Juggernaut takes a shot, doesn't manage to kill off those Golems, but I've got 2 units on this token anyway. And that is going to be that. Even though we do get turn 7, nothing's going to be accomplished, there's nothing I can really do. And my opponent isn't going to be able to do much either in turn 7, so that's going to be the end of the game. And that's that. So I'm sitting on 2 1-point objectives there, and both the 2-point objective. And my opponent is sitting on 2 1-point objectives. So I've got 6, he's got 2. But I'm sitting on 4 tokens in total. So for the bonus victory points in this event, it says score 1 bonus tournament point for each bluff token you control at the end of the game. So what I'm actually thinking is, because it's a maximum of 5, and I got 4, would I have been able to score a bonus tournament point if I'd just left a unit on one of the 0-point objectives? It doesn't specify one of the for each bluff token you hold that is worth anything. It just says for each bluff token you hold. So is that just a really silly piece of tournament rules writing there? Or am I misunderstanding the potential for that rule to be exploited? Sounds very strange to me, because why would you... It makes no logical sense to try and control an objective that's actually nothing, but the way it's written here suggests that maybe it would have got me an extra tournament point if I'd just moved and sat on a worthless objective. So that'd be interesting to find out, especially if my position in the table was decided by 1 point. I'd be very interested to find out about whether that's thing. So moving on to the next round with a very good score there. I got nearly maximum points for both counts. I nearly got maximum kill points. There's not much left alive, so +4 for that and +4 for bonus victory points. So very good score there. So a minimum and then an almost maximum. Should be pretty much centre of the pack, you would think now. And moving on to round 3, and this is the control scenario, which is of course where the table is divided into 6 squares. So we've got a square here, we've got a square here, we've got a square in the middle, we've got another square in the middle, and then another square on each flank. So controlling one of those with unit strength at the end of the game means that you get 1 victory point. If you control the opponent's central square, then you get 2 victory points. So my army isn't great for scenarios like this, because I do not have many drops at all. And not that much mobility. Only the Gargoyles, who are, again, obviously for this scenario, it's perfect for them. Just leave them out the game, don't let them get shot, and then just jump onto a zone in the last turn to get a victory point. No reason to use them in the fight whatsoever. Just cheating yourself out of points by doing that. And I think other armies do have units that are even cheaper than Gargoyles for that purpose. But for Abyssal Dwarves, that's the best unit for the job because they're extremely fast. And they can just swoop wherever they're needed. So, I still want a very solid centre here because the 2 central areas are the most important. And I'm up against a variation of the elf list, which is Sylvan Kin, which means that you get lots of tree-based units. and archers and that kind of thing. So, I haven't played against this particular list before. It's from the Uncharted Empires book, I think. One of the new themed lists. So, go through the setup here. So I've got Basusu hiding behind some rocks. There is enemy shooting. Immortal Guard and Brackie on the left flank. In the centre, we've got all the Golems and Ironcaster. The half-breeds are sitting behind because my opponent has lots of shooting, but none of it has any piercing. Which means that if I just present this wall of defense 6 and unwaverable defense 5 units, it's going to do next to nothing. Unwaverable regenerating defense 5 units even, and defense 6. So they don't really have any good shooting targets. The half-breeds and the Gargoyles would be things they would immediately think, yes, I'll just take that free unit, plink, and you're dead. So the half-breeds are going to hide, and I've positioned their leader point through that gap there. So if there's a fight going on in this area, they can actually see. So they could potentially join in with something if there are any enemy units directly in front. It's not likely to happen, but just in case. And they're still able to hide from the line of sight of the archers, which I made sure of. And Gargoyles they're not going to move at all, unless it's an emergency. And the Mortar positioned over there. There are some tall enemy units, which we'll get to in a minute. So, this is... which flank is here? Let's look. So this is this area here that we're looking at now. So this is the, as I look at it, this is the right flank. We have got, let's get the sheet here so I can name these units correctly. We have got 2 Kindred Archer regiments, which are here, which are just your standard archers. Kindred Tall Spears, there's 1 unit here. There are 2 hordes of Forest Shamblers, which are very similar to just your general elementals, except I think they're only defense 5, 6 compared to Earth Element. 2 big nasty tree herders, which are quite scary, very, very powerful, and they can surge those Forest Shamblers. And having surge on such a powerful unit, it's a blessing and a curse, I would say. I've been in that position before where I've had, for example, the Undead Revenant King, the Worm, who's good at fighting, but he can also surge. So it's good to have that versatility on the turn you don't want to throw them into combat, but then sometimes you end up with a bit of a dilemma. Because if you want to get something into the perfect combat position, you have to forego fighting with this really potent, powerful unit. So it can work, but not always. And is that everything on this side? There's a little hero back there as well, which is an Elven Archmage with the Inspiring Talisman. So just inspiring that little blob there. Over here, we've got another troop of Tall Spears. We've got 2 Glade Stalkers, Kindred Glade Stalker troops. They are scouting, shooty units. And then there is also this unit here. These are Hunters of the Wild. So they're okay at fighting. And there's lots of scout moves. Pretty much half the army is going to scout up, and you'll see just based on the positioning in these pictures. So my opponent would like to scout up and then shoot me in turn 1. So here we go with turn 1. And I actually won the roll-off, so I had the option of going first and closing the distance greatly on my opponent, who is behind these woods here. But I decide to let my opponent go first. And this is mostly due to the scenario. In control, I want to be going last because there's likely to be some enemy shooting left at the end of the game. Wherever my Gargoyles go, if they have to hop out before my opponent gets a turn, they are likely to get shot. So I would like to go last so that my opponent can't maximise his advantage in terms of unit numbers and mobility, because if he just starts spreading out in the last turn and just hops into areas, then I could easily be weaseled out of a win in that way. So I want to go last just to make sure that it's me that has the option of stealing the sections at the end of the game. Even though I'm going to get shot by things that have scouted up, there's not the worry of units scouting up and then charging into combat or being surged into combat, because they just be a bad idea. Sending 1 unit into my lines would just get them killed easily. And there are these woods that they're behind over there anyway. Here, these units are going to be able to shoot in the first turn, but that's fine by me, because I've only presented targets that are quite difficult to kill with shooting that doesn't have any piercing on it. So what do they manage to do in turn 1? 1 wound on Brekkie. He doesn't mind that. The Kindred Archers move up, and they don't really accomplish much. They only move a little bit, I think, so they could get to within range, but because of that, they were -1 to hit. They don't have steady aim, which the small archer units on the left do have. Those ones don't have it, so they didn't accomplish anything. So that's 1 less turn of effective shooting as well, I would say, because if I went first, I would undoubtedly be moving forwards to this area, which would mean that the enemy wouldn't have to move to shoot, so they would have a better round of shooting, and it puts them a turn down, basically. They weren't able to really accomplish anything with that turn 1, because they still haven't got into these woods. They are right behind them, so as soon as I touch the woods, I'm a charge target. So we'll see what I'm going to do about that. So everyone's moving up as fast as they can. I've surged the Greater Golem into the woods, so he's presenting a charge option for them. And that's fine by me if he wants to get killed, because that's going to bring the enemy into the woods, which means I can then charge them. I'll show you what the likely charge options might be in a minute. Over here, everyone's moving up. I'm leaving my characters out of charge range. And what I want to do next turn is just charge Susan, who's over here, and Brackie into these small archer units. They could potentially take them out in 1 hit. Oh yeah, I don't think I mentioned this unit here. This is the avatar of the Green Lady. So that is a hero, and one of her special abilities, she has an aura, so she can choose at the end of her movement to either heal all friendly units within 6 inches or damage all enemy units 6 inches. So that's quite a potentially good unit to have against an army like mine that's quite compact with high defense that you struggle to damage. Normally you can just plink 1 damage on them automatically. So I haven't got much on this flank. And you can see here that this Golem, the charge options that are available, there is a triple charge open to the enemy here. So these Forest Shamblers, this Tree Herder, and these Forest Shamblers can all potentially charge the front of the Greater Obsidian Golem, I think. I think this unit may have line of sight. I could be wrong. If not, there is at least a double charge available. So is my opponent going to take it? Even if the Greater Obsidian Golem dies, those units are then ripe for the charging. This unit here is +1 to hits. They don't mind too much being hindered. I've got Boots of Striding on this unit here, who would be able to see a Tree Herder over the top of the Golems, because it's so tall. So what my opponent has actually spotted, which I didn't spot, and had the Greater Obsidian Golem been surged 1 extra inch, then it wouldn't be possible. This unit here actually has space to move forward, pivot, and remain 1 inch away from the Golem here, and then get surged through the gap by the Tree Herders into these Immortal Guard. Thankfully, the Immortal Guard didn't go forward maximum because they didn't want to be multi-charged, so they stayed and made sure everything was going to be in their front arc here. So had they gone forward a little bit more, then a surge through like that would have gone into their flank, which would have been even worse, obviously. So turn 2 for the Sylvan Kin. And you can see here that they've set up that position here. There is an inch gap because you just measure to the models rather than the movement tray in this army. And it means, though, that none of these units are getting into the game yet. They're sitting back and waiting, which they maybe don't mind because they've got the shooting advantage, but it's not going to do much against this wall of death. Over on this side, these units, obviously assuming this unit's going to die because they've just left their flank open to the Immortal Guard, so they must be assuming that the Immortal Guard won't be around next turn. And ignoring the Greater Golem entirely, so that surge is going to go ahead, but it is into the front. And they do get successfully surged in. They do. The 5 damage was actually from shooting that was dished out first before the surge. And then they do another 6, so they do kill them. So that was quite a good move there. It's something I didn't think of. I didn't think the gap was going to be big enough, but it was just about big enough for the unit to squeeze through. And so what am I going to do here? This is a bit of a dilemma. whoever this guy charges, he's going to get rear-charged unless I block him up with something. And I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to block them up, really, because that's... I want my two characters to charge into these two troops. Because normally, I wouldn't care that much about them, because they're not going to affect the main battle line, which is where I'm mainly focused here. But in this scenario, I don't want little troops to be alive, because they can just dance around between areas in the last turn. A lot of these things have Pathfinder as well. They can move fast through all the terrain. So they're going to be able to move from one section to another. So I want to kill those units off. I want my two heroes to kill them, which means I don't want to block in this unit with any of them. Ironcaster doesn't want to do that either because he doesn't want to throw his life away. So what I'm going to do is not engage here at all. I'm going to go backwards with the greater obsidian golem and accept that I'm going to be flank charged by that unit. And is a flank charge definitely going to kill him? No, because they only have crushing strength 1, I think. So it's definitely not a guarantee flank charge would kill him. And then I'm going to bring the half-breeds over in this direction to act as a bit of support looking this way. And then the golems are just going to go forward but not go into the woods so that they are not charge option for these things here. We'll see how it goes though. So, turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. I go for that charge, waver both those archer units, which is okay, and I'd hope to kill them both next turn. The greater golem moves back out of the woods, accepting that he's going to be flank charged. It's not perfect, but I think he should be able to survive that, with inspiring as well. Okay, so this unit of golems here, I may have to go back to that wide shot again to show you what they've done. So this unit has just gone forward. This unit have gone forward and then been surged. I think they had to do a bit of a turn so that they could touch this unit before anything else. So forward, a bit of a turn that way, and then I surged them forward and made contact with that unit. So it's hindered, but it's only a troop, so that's fine. So they are dead, and then I turn in to face the flank, so I'm really threatening the enemy now. They've got surge options here to get back at me, but it's still not ideal. They're being attacked on multiple fronts now, and the only flank I'm presenting to the enemy is to archers. And is a regiment of archers really going to take a flank charge on a defense 6 undamaged horde of golems? I think not. So that unit moving forward, the Immortal Guard moving forward. So it's looking like a decent position here. So there is the obvious charge is that one, but what are these 3 units going to do? Because they're attacked from this side now. So they have got decisions to make. They don't have anyone that can just charge straight in there. They would have to use a valuable surge to get in there. And we'll see. What have they got in mind? You can see the half-breeds staying out of range of that unit, but within range so that if they charge in here, boom. Very spicy. And that's how everything's positioned. The Gargoyles are still staying out of range of any of the shooting because why would they get themselves killed needlessly like that? They're just a juicy target. Mortar puts a bit of damage onto the Kindred Archers. It's a start, but I don't expect it to kill them. Turn 3 for the Sylvan Kin. So here's this plan that was hatched by my opponent. The Tree Herders move out the way. This unit moves through the woods here and gets to an inch away from the greater golem and turns itself a little bit as well, I think, so that it can now be surged into the front. So it'll have a flank charge and front charge. Again, it's not a guarantee to kill this unit. They don't have much crushing strength, but it's now much more likely than just the flank charge. And here, the Tree Herders, this one's just blocking up these golems a bit, and that one isn't in a position to do much. So it's a bit of a game of cat and mouse, lots of surge shenanigans going on here on both sides, and this wood makes it very difficult because you can't see through to things that are entirely on the other side, and my units are all hindered when they're in there, and my opponents aren't. So it's very, very complicated, and we've spent quite a lot of time on the clock working out the angles for all these various surges. And we were already behind, actually, in terms of round time, because part of my opponent's army fell on the floor at the start of the game, which was quite traumatic for all concerned. But thankfully, it was none of the fragile units fell on the floor. It was only plastic, I think. So there's just a few mildly bent spears, and I think one arm fell off. So that was lucky, because I think the whole army was pretty much upside down when it landed. So very, very good that these units were already off the tray, which is why there was no serious damage done. So that was fortunate. And so what's going on here? These units have turned round to threaten my heroes, because what else are they going to do over there, really? And there's the successful charge, successful surge into the Greater Golem. So it's got a chance of dying now, but it's definitely not guaranteed. There's going to be a lot of attacks coming in, but I think they only hit on 4s, and then with only crush 1 against defense 6, inspired, undamaged, -19, it's definitely a bit spicy. And here, Kindred Archers don't do anything really this turn. And 8 damage, not enough. They needed to do way more than that. And now, things are opening up. So here is the position we find ourselves in. And the obvious moves here, the half-breeds have a choice of attacking one of these units. So the half-breeds are going to go into this one here. And the Greater Obsidian Golem is also going to attack this unit, which leaves this unit totally untouched. So I need to kill things. I don't just want to send one unit into each, because they're undamaged and good chance they'll survive. So this unit doesn't need to use its Boots of Striding yet, because this won't be a hindered charge into these Shamblers here, because the woods don't extend this far. So that's nice, because there's a lot of difficult terrain. I want to save those boots for later. They can go in there. He can go in there. But what can I attack this unit with? So this unit, if they charge the Tree Herder, then nobody really is going to be able to fight here. So they are going to have to move sideways, which they wouldn't be able to do if the Kindred Archers had charged into them. So if my opponent had some kind of psychic vision and foresaw that I was going to move them sideways instead of fighting with them, then could have charged in there to block them, to stop them doing so. And I would have had to rethink then. But as it is, they can move sideways, and these guys can then turn round on the spot 90 degrees and walk this way, 5 inches. The Ironcaster can then surge them in, and I would just need an average surge of 4 inches, I think we worked it out as, which is exactly what you should get with his surge of 8. So it should succeed into the flank of that Horde, but it's a hindered flank charge into this pretty tough unit. So is that going to be enough? It's definitely not a guarantee, and they'd be opening themselves up to a flank charge from a Tree Herder if they don't succeed. So what else can I bring to the party? Well, I've also got Brekkie and Basusu, who are over here, off camera, who can actually see this unit in the woods. So they are going to disengage from their fight and both make a hindered flank charge into this unit as well. So with both of them making the charges and this unit in there as well, with the Greater Golem and the Half-Breeds charging into this unit, I'm hoping this area is going to be completely clear next turn, so it's only the Tree Herders left. So I haven't got anything to attack the Tree Herders with, but I shouldn't be offering them any flanks, assuming both of these units die, and they're going to find it difficult to pick who to kill, because this guy's only on 8 wounds, so he's I could say he's a prime target. He's also the lowest unit strength thing in there, so killing him maybe doesn't help that much. The Tree Herders are defense 6 though, so killing him may be a decent idea because he's got the Crushing Strength 3, which can threaten them. The Half-Breeds, they'll still have their boots to this fight, so they're still going to be very useful as well, and infinitely more killable than anything else around here. Very much the glass cannon of the army. So turn 3, and as you can see, that plan obviously worked because everything's now dead. The Half-Breeds and the Greater Golem have then turned round. Brackie has gone backwards after he joined in the fight here, just to make sure there's no weird guaranteed overrun shenanigans going on. But he didn't go backwards very far, unfortunately, which means it might still be possibly open, I'm sure. And Basusu is waiting there. And here, got these guys there. I didn't want to put Basusu going forwards, because that would open up maybe even a double overrun on Basusu into the Greater Golem, which would kill both of them in one go. Very likely. So as it is, with both those Forest Shambler Hordes down, those Surge shenanigans, my opponent's in a very tricky situation now. These guys are looking a bit lonely. But my opponent does still have quite a lot of scoring units alive, and a lot of mine are kind of congested in the middle, so it's not all over yet. In terms of killing things, I think it's pretty much game over, and I've got the definitive advantage now, because whatever these tree herders do, they're in trouble. They charge into this unit, they've got a flank maybe opening up there, there may be even a flank or a rear there. They charge into this unit, they've got surge into the rear open there, maybe a charge or a surge into the flank here. It's just really bad news whatever they do. Whoever they charge, they're getting flanked or reared by something else. And just the fight overall is going to go my way definitely in this area. Turn 4. So how do they deal with this situation? Well, everything's coming in this way, because this is where the things are that they need to kill. So the archers are going to be targeting the juiciest target, which is the half-breeds, which are the one thing I don't want to be shot. The Avatar of the Green Lady is positioned here to just put 1 automatic damage onto all my units in this bubble. Kindred archers wound the Immortal Guard, but that's not going to worry them, and I now have a charge on this unit next turn. 1 tree herder goes into the Greater Golem, and they decide to split their charges here rather than trying to definitely take something out. And the Greater Golem takes a bit of damage, but he's inspired, so it still possibly could have died there, but did not. This unit was probably never going to die with just the 1 charge there. And shooting puts some more damage onto the half-breeds, up to 4, but not enough to do anything to them yet. So there's the situation. This unit is free. They have a rear charge on either one of the tree herders available now. So one of the tree herders is going to die, the other one probably live for a turn. So I think I'm going to go for this one here, because I want my Golem Horde over on this side, because there's lots of enemy units that need fighting and chasing down. And then my individuals can run off to fight the archers again, to preserve the life of the half-breeds, who would undoubtedly be shot again next turn. The Immortal Guard have a charge option up there. So that's starting to tie up the enemy shooting now. Turn 4, so there's that charge, put some damage on them, not enough to kill them yet. Over here, the Obsidian Golems put a bit of damage onto the tree herder, but not much. And the rear charge and the front charge is enough to kill the other tree herder, so that one's very lonely, he's going to go down next turn. Blocking up and disordering the archers with Brekkie and Basusu again, because these two aren't going to score me any points in this scenario, so late in the game I'm not that eager to keep them alive, I just want to use them to preserve the life of the much more valuable units like this one. Because if the half-breeds die, I start to run low on units that can actually hold table section, so I would much prefer them to live. Turn 5 for the Sylvan Kin. So, counter charges here, all spears come forward, and the hunters, these Hunters of the Wild, is that what they're called? Yeah, there we go. Hunters of the Wild into Brekkie as well. And the tree herder, just having another go at them, not much else he can do really. I'm not sure, he may have had the option to take out the Greater Elemental by backing off an inch and then getting the charge in through that gap. But it's the lowest unit strength unit around, so you can see a case for not bothering with it and trying to get rid of this unit. The archers flank charge the Immortal Guard. I knew that was coming, but they're not really worried about that because they're only archers. Susu gets wavered by the Blade Stalkers. Brackie takes more damage than that, but doesn't get wavered. It's just the way dice go sometimes. And it's looking pretty healthy. This unit takes quite a bit of damage there, actually, but they are inspired, so thankfully they survive. Turn 5, And the Gargoyles have just moved a bit into this bottom right table area, just so they're going to hold that at the end. The Immortal Guard finish off one of the archer regiments and turn to face the other one and regenerate some of their wounds. Very nice having regeneration on Immortal Guard. They've gone up in points, but I think it was worth it, because they are very, very survivable now. And the Tree Herder is just charged from multiple angles, and he's toast. The half-breeds charge into one of the archer troops and take them out. Brekkie charged into the other one and took them out, and then overran all the way down there, after khususan got out of the way so that the half-breeds could get into this one. And there he is, overrunning all the way up there. The Greater Golem, I can't remember whether he actually... I think he may have been surged into the avatar of the Green Lady here by the Ironcaster, because it looks like he's fighting her there, but doesn't kill it. And so you can see this document here. Before the tournament, none of the software had been updated with army stats, none of the online army building stuff. So I took photos of the relevant entries for my units and just printed them out on a piece of paper so I could have a copy of my unit stats and give one to my opponent. But then the organisers of the tournament then said that okay, the stats aren't out, we're just going to take it upon ourselves to print out everyone's army lists for them, which was very nice of them. So I didn't really need to do this. And now I've noticed that, I think, which program is it? I think Battle Scribe has been updated with unit stats now. I don't know about all the other programs, but I think that one has. So that is good news for people who like to build their armies without a pen and paper. So you can see, looking very, very healthy here. It's still not a guaranteed win because there are enemy scoring units still alive, but it's not looking good for them. I mean, what can they really do here? The archers aren't going to kill those Immortal Guard next turn. These guys, they could maybe kill half-breeds, but I've still got plenty of scoring units everywhere else. Turn 6. So, Tall Spears try and finish off this guy, and they don't. I don't think they actually do any damage to him. But even forcing a nerve test on him maybe would have killed him here because he's already heavily wounded. The Hunters of the Wild decide to charge Brekkie, but they don't kill him either, so they've now opened up. Or, I don't know if we've got the damage on him yet. Yeah. So actually, there you go. Oh, that damage may have been from the Avatar of the Green Lady's special ability there. Or it could have just been a totally abysmal nerve roll. I can't remember. But Brekkie does take some damage and gets wavered, but that means their rear is now open to the half-breeds, which is not going to be fun times for them at all. And it's looking very bad for the Sylvan Kin. Turn 6 for the Abyssal Dwarves. The Obsidian Golems from the centre have now charged up into the rear of the archers. Immortal Guard in the front, they're dead. Half-breeds kill off Hunters of the Wild. And Tall Spears are killed by the Greater Obsidian Golem, so my opponent has no scoring units left. Looks like Basusu's fallen over there. And Gargoyles holding a table section as well. So very, very healthy result in the end there. And let's see, I was able to get the maximum points for holding 5 table sections because I was able to spread out sufficiently to do that, and +4 for kill points. Not quite maximum there, but that's 2 really big wins in a row now to make up for that minimum points in round 1. So very, very healthy. And in that game, I only lost 160 points. I only lost 1 regiment of Immortal Guard, which was in turn 2, I think. And after that, I just didn't lose anything else. There were some poor nerve rolls that contributed to that, definitely. So maybe a bit fortunate to win by that margin. But I think the way it was going, it was definitely going to be a win anyway. But at least one of these units probably should have been dead before the end. So it should have been a little bit closer. And moving into the final round. And this scenario is push, and 1 token each and 1 in the centre was specified in the tournament pack. And I'm against yet more dwarves. So facing dwarves twice at this event. And I've got my opponent's list right here, so we can go through that in a moment. And you can see we've both congested the centre of the table quite heavily here with fighty units. But if I move out the way, you can see that there's quite a significant gun line in the corner as well. So we'll see whether that's enough to break through my high defence army as we go along. So here's my opponent's list. We've got a couple of Brach troops. There's not many upgrades at all in this army. Then there's this kind of W formation of infantry regiments, which is 2 Iron Guard, which are at the front to take the hits, and then there are 3 Shield Breaker regiments to deliver the furious counterattack, because they are very, very tasty at hitting things. And there is an Army Standard Bearer with the Loot of Insatiable Darkness to boost the hitting power of these units even more, with a bit of crushing strength. There is a Dwarf Lord here with the Wings of Honeymaze. He's a good counter for my individuals who would like to be flying around untouched. And over on this flank there's the gun line, which is 3 cannons and 2 Iron Watch crossbow regiments. So just your standard shooting with a bit of piercing on it. So lots of piercing shooting, which is what I don't like to see. Remember in the last game the shooting did next to nothing because none of it had piercing, and all of it does here. There's a Brach Lord there as well, and he has the Blade of the Beast Slayer, which is going to make him very effective against my Golems and other such units. It'll give him additional crushing strength against them, which is very useful. So on this flank, I've got Basusu and the Immortal Guard. I was severely outdropped in this game, so my opponent had his entire gun line to deploy after I'd finished deploying. So I put 1 regiment of Immortal Guard out here just to threaten the fact that I might put the push token out here. So my opponent had to deploy something here regardless. And Basusu is here, but she can easily be sent elsewhere. In the middle, we've got Brekkie turned on his side so he can get an extra bit of movement in the first turn. And then we've got the Golems, Ironcaster between them, Gargoyles, the greater Golem there, with the Immortal Guard, Regiment number 2, and they have the push token on them, and the half-breeds behind. The half-breeds are the main thing I don't want to be shot here. The Gargoyles, there's nowhere for them to jump in the last turn, particularly in this scenario, unless the objectives fall on the floor, which I would hope doesn't happen. So they are going to be used to block up the enemy instead, so I can get more favourable charges, probably. And over on my left flank, I've got my Mortar just poking his toe into the woods so it can see through. And that's it. So there's the middle objective, which is in some woods. And my opponent puts his push token onto one of the Iron Guard units. So defense 6. So very tough little blobs there. And there's my push token. Turn 1. So my opponent goes first, immediately threatens the Mortar. So this unit is in charge range of it now, which means I may only get 1 shot off. But it is only a troop, and it is charging through difficult terrain if he wants to take it out next turn. So it's not a guarantee that that unit is going to die. So I do have some options. Do I abandon it though? That's the question. The gun line, what does it do this turn? 3 damage on the greater Golem. So a gun line like that, I'll accept that, because these crossbows aren't in range to really do it. 3 cannons, I'll accept 3 damage. My turn 1. So I decide, you know what, I can't afford these units to mop up Mortar and attack from this side, because I want to have the token in the middle and then not advance too much further. I don't want to be trying to run away from these guys with the short little legs I've got in my battle line. So the half-breeds are coming here to hopefully win this fight overall, because the way I look at it is, these guys charge in, kill the Mortar, half-breeds charge them, kill them, using the boots of striding. This unit then charges into difficult terrain to attack the half-breeds, doesn't kill them. The half-breeds then countercharge and hopefully kill them. That's the ideal scenario anyway, and then the half-breeds can turn around and then rejoin the game. But I'm using this unit just to stop these guys being a threat later on, hopefully. It could all go horribly wrong, but you know. In the middle, the Gargoyles are just swooped out. They can't be shot, and of course they're the juiciest of all targets. Them and the half-breeds, just, you don't want them shot. So they're hiding from all the guns, and they're in a position to swoop and land in front of some enemy units in a minute. Everyone else moving forward as fast as they can, making sure that I'm not leaving myself open to any flank charges from Brocs over there, or anything here, which is really too far away to threaten me anyway. And this unit was surged a bit because I want them to get the objective very shortly. Brekkie is just being very brave, just running out into the middle. Not worried at all, even though there's a king there. The Brock Lord is quite far away from anything that he wants to fight right now. Khususan is just hiding from the individuals because she doesn't want to be pinned down. She wants to be able to fly off and get involved next turn. Brekkie doesn't mind being charged by the king though. The Immortal Guard decide, you know what, we're not going to redeploy. We're going to march forward and force you to shoot us with your gun battery. This unit is in no way affecting the game. The entire game is being fought in this area here. The Immortal Guard have zero chance getting involved in this fight at any significant time in the game. So they're just going to push forward and make the enemy shoot them. Turn 2 for the Dwarves. So Brocs into the Mortar. The other Brocs, however, and was I expecting this move? Maybe. It's not that crazy, because if you look at the trade-off of units here, charge, kill, charge, probably don't kill. It's because that unit would be hindered charging the half-breeds. So if you look at it that way, maybe it's wise not to involve them in this little trade-off here and keep them to threaten the flank of my unit that's carrying the token. Possibly, you could look at it that way, but they do have a wall here, which could prove troublesome for them as well. But it's hoping to prevent me from advancing as fast as I otherwise would, I think is the idea there. Because it means if I turn this unit round, I've got one token on them which isn't anywhere near my opponent's half. So, we'll see. And the other units there, just moving forward a bit, but not too much. Flying King actually retreats to in front of the gun line. And don't mind that. The gun line does 6 wounds to these golems this time. So when there's a gun line like that, you just have to march forward and hope for the best sometimes. If there's an area of the board you need to be in. And 4 wounds to the Immortal Guard. The crossbows targeted them. So they don't mind because they can regenerate. So I'm kind of glad that the cannons didn't target them as well, because if they'd just destroyed that unit in one go, they can stop worrying about them then. But now that unit's going to survive next turn, and with regeneration they could even survive another round of crossbow shots. So the Flying King elects not to attack Brekkie. So Brekkie now has the world at his fingertips next turn. Who does he want to charge? Look at this though. Because this is a hindered charge, despite a zillion attacks from this troop of Brocs, they only do 3 wounds to the mortar and don't kill it. So that is not looking good for them now, because they don't have the other Brocs as backup either. They've turned to face the other way, so the half-breeds can now steam in and save the day, and this mortar can actually live to fight another day. Turn 2 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So they use their boots of striding, steam in, kill that unit. They might as well use their boots there, because it's possible that they may never get into another fight for the rest of the game. So using them now, get rid of that unit, and the mortar is now safe. The Gargoyles turn and plot themselves in front of these Brocs, so I don't have to worry about them when I advance. So if they want to kill the Gargoyles, they will then be in range for the half-breeds to flank charge them, or they more likely would turn to face in this direction to face the half-breeds, which again means that they're not threatening my flank anymore. Brekkie decides to charge into the centre unit of shield breakers because no one else can actually see him. So that gap that was left there was just big enough for somebody to sit in there and not be seen by any of the surrounding units, which is very, very nice indeed. So he's only going to have to contend with that one unit, and he wavers them as well. They are headstrong though. Immortal Guard continue pushing forward. Obsidian Golems jump onto the token and pick it up, but they are going to drop it in a minute. They just want to grab it, and then they're going to drop it behind them so my Immortal Guard can come and collect it. Khususan has actually flown away from that flank now into the middle here, behind these guys. So, she is now a bit more versatile. She can get involved in the game a bit more, because over there, Was there really a point going after killing one cannon and then getting charged and pinned down by a Brock Lord and a Flying King? Not really. So she's going to get involved in the game now, and I'll just leave the artillery battery and the gun line alone and hope for the best. Turn 3, the King initially decided he was going to charge into the flank of these Immortal Guard, and then had a rethink, which you'll see in a minute. But the Brock Lord charges into the flank of these Golems. They're a juicy target for him because he's going to get +2 crushing strength, I think it is, against monsters like this. Big monster. And Flying King changed his mind and decided to just land in front of the Immortal Guard, which means they can still be shot. You can see they've regenerated all their wounds, by the way. It's a much better move, this, because they could just ignore him. If he does 2 or 3 damage to them, they'll just keep marching forward and totally ignore that guy, and then he can't even shoot them because he's charged. So leaving them uncharged means he can now shoot the unit again. So the crossbows put 6 damage on them. These guys, the shield breakers, pass their headstrong roll and do a bit of damage to Brekkie, not much. And at this point, I was thinking that my opponent could have perhaps pivoted these 2 units of shield breakers slightly inwards, just enough so they're not giving up their flanks, but they can still see him next turn, but he elected not to. So I'll show you on the next wide shot what I'm thinking with that. The Brocks kill the Gargoyles that were parked in front of them, of course, but they're held up now, and they had to turn to get the half-breeds into their front. So it's not very easy for me to create a flank charge on these 2 units here if they turn inwards a slight amount, because I've only got Surge 8. I don't think moving sideways with this guy and then surging forward would be a viable option to get anyone's flank. I think they could have afforded to turn in a few degrees, just enough to see Brekkie, so that if this continues into being a bit of a standoff and he's still just chilling in there fighting that unit, they have the option to then go all in, triple charge him, if they want to, and then kill him, and then maybe back this unit away and then pivot the other 2 to take the charge. It's not necessarily going to be a good move, but you have the option to do it, and I don't think it would have cost them much to do that small pivot. You leave yourself open with the option then later. It's always good to give yourself more options if providing yourself with those options isn't costing you anything positionally. And you can see here that the Brock Lord did 5 damage to the Golems, not enough to worry them yet. Turn 3 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So the half-breeds charge in to these guys, to the Brocks. Not enough to kill them. You can see the damage markers are like a little dial here. What are they on there? Not much. Because of course it's a hindered charge now, so not that many wounds done. I expect to win that fight overall though, especially with getting in the first hit, because they won't have their thunderous charge next time. And here, the Golems move forwards so that Khususan can charge into the Brock Lord. And the Immortal Guard just fight the King, do a little bit of damage. And they regenerate 4 of their wounds as well, which is very nice. Brekkie, I should say, continues fighting here. And I think wavers them again. But of course they're going to be able to do their headstrong test again. And you can see here that these Golems have dropped the token before they move forward, and the Immortal Guard have turned inwards now that they're confident there's no Brocks coming for them. And they are going to go and pick up that token next turn, hopefully. Which means I'll have 2 tokens, and my opponent has very little chance of getting this token out of his own half, as things stand. I've left my entire line here within charge range of the shield breakers, within charge range of the Iron Guard, but out of range of all 3 shield breaker units. Apart from maybe this one, but they've got Brekkie right in front of them anyway, so it makes no difference. But these 2 are out of charge range. I don't want them charging me. There's no real need right now because I'm ahead in the scenario as it stands. And see what's going on over there. King is blocking me in, but again, I'm tying up a Flying King and those crossbow units. And Mortar is quite happy down here now as well. Turn 4. So, the Brock Lord decides to ignore Khususan and go back into the Golems. We're joined by the shield breakers and by the Iron Guard in the front. The shield breakers aren't in range. The shield breakers aren't fighting anybody. Apart from, actually that unit, I think they failed their headstrong test this turn, so they can't fight Brekkie. This unit, though, have come in to get involved in the game, so they're a bit closer now. That unit isn't able to do much, and this unit doesn't charge anybody. So next turn I'm going to be able to go all in with charges, I think. And he moves away again so they can be shot. They do. Cannons put some damage onto the greater golem. And this horde of lesser golems are killed by a combination of the Beast Slayer wielding Brock Lord and the Iron Guard. So that unit is dead. But considering the gun line I'm facing, the fact that that is the only dead unit so far, not too disappointed. Still looking healthy scenario-wise, but I am going to have to rejig my plans a little bit and decide who to fight carefully here. So my turn 4, what am I going to do? I am going to charge the Greater Obsidian Golem into that unit of Shield Breakers. I'm going to charge the Lesser Obsidian Golems into that unit of Iron Guard. I'm going to charge Brekkie into that unit of Shield Breakers to hold them up. My Ironcaster is going to move forward and fireball this heavily damaged unit of Shield Breakers, because they're at death's door, and I might as well. This unit, I don't need to block them up much right now because I can pick up the token with my Immortal Guard and still be out of their charge range. So I'm not too worried about that right now. So I'm going to pick up that token and then I'm going to start going backwards after that out of the woods with them. Turn 4. So they've picked up the token and they're going to start turning backwards, or, well, they pivot and pick up the token, and then after this turn they're going to start going backwards to escape. Immortal Guard are just going to regenerate and then fight the king again. Brekkie putting some wounds on those shield breakers, just pinning them in place. And these two charges go in. No kills achieved, but it's a start, and they don't, because of the width of all the units involved, they don't have the option of a flank charge on me there. But next turn, I'm going to have, if they continue this fight, I'm going to have the option to move my golems backwards and charge the greater golem into the flank, that unit, which will be a very good chance of killing them. And I'll need to do that sooner rather than later because there's enemy regiments around. I can only hold them up for so long, possibly. There's the guy with the Blade of Beast Slayer as well. So last turn, there wasn't a picture of it because I think we forgot to do it at the time. But the half-breeds actually became wavered with a nice nerve roll from the Brocs. So they back away onto this wall, which means that if the Brocs charge them next turn again, they're going to be hindered by that wall. So they're just preserving themselves. So that could potentially cause a few problems. The Ironcaster is up there, fireballing that unit. You can see they've disappeared because he fireballed them off. And he's also more than 6 inches away from this unit, so if they charge him, they're not going to be able to overrun to this unit, which would be bad because I don't want them to be fighting. I want them to be hiding because they're carrying 2 precious tokens. Turn 5 for the Dwarves. So, what does this gun battery do this time? Well, you'll see shortly. And there's how it's looking in the centre at the end of this. So you can see that he's charged in those Iron Guard into the Ironcaster. And he's also charged the Brock Lord into him as well, just to get him out of the way so he can start chasing this unit, I think. I'm not sure I would have done that. I thought that the Brock Lord was going to start chipping away at this unit. It's difficult though, because they do have regeneration and he's not that killy against this unit. The half-breeds take a hit from those Brocs, but I don't think they actually take any damage. Or maybe they take a small amount. We'll see in a moment. Gunline does more damage to these Immortal Guard, but they're still not dead. There you go. Now they might die. 10 wounds, there you go, they're dead. They decide to fire some cannons at them as well, I think. So that's why. So my opponent, he also manages to waver Brackie this turn, but he's still blocking in that unit, which was his goal in the first place. The Ironcaster actually survives because all these charges were hindered. So that's nice there. These golems are at death's door now after the amount of damage they took, but they're surviving and he is surviving as well. So what I'm going to do next turn is they are going to back away, opening up the greater golem flank charge on this unit here. Because I just want to kill one of them, because if they both just go back in, they may both live, and then this unit will almost certainly die next turn. So I might as well charge him in there, kill them, and then this unit is stuck only being able to fight him next turn. So this unit will survive unless they get shot. which ties up the guns from shooting anything else. So, they're just 1 damage done on them, not enough to waver them again. And turn 5 for the Abyssal Dwarves. So that plan worked, they back away. Greater Golem charges in the flank, kills them, and then turns back to face that unit. Immortal Guard move back out of the woods so that they're never going to be shot. Got 2 tokens now. And the Greater Golem is also holding a token because this unit, or the unit that was killed here, was carrying it, so he's holding it now. So I've got all 3 tokens, one of which is in my opponent's half. The half-breeds finish off the Brocks this turn and turn back to face the action. Basusu goes back into the Lord, trying to kill him because he is a threat, and the Ironcaster just sits there, waiting to die next turn. So there's how it's looking. So, what is my opponent going to do next time? I think the Ironcaster is not a mighty individual. I don't think a Brock Lord is a mighty individual, so I don't think they would block charge in the flank of these golems from the shield, from the Iron Guard. But they could be Bane chanted potentially by the Standard Bearer, so it would be a hindered charge. But that unit is already very dead. But that is also the prime shooting target for the cannons, so I can possibly understand not taking it and just working on taking out the Ironcaster and then hoping to shoot this unit off. But then if you take that charge, you do bring the unit closer to the units that he needs to be killing. So, turn 6. And Standard Bearer has actually come closer down here to get involved a bit. So not much is going on, really. They are going to go back in there. And the Flying King is coming back over this way now that those Immortal Guard are finally dead. There we go, back in there. Gunline, what does it do? More damage onto this Horde. How much damage had this Horde taken? Let's go back. Not much, actually. The cannons aren't hitting very often in this game, so not much damage done there. Brekkie is now not wavered after that, I think. Brock Lord kills the Ironcaster, and he tries to overrun to get out of the way, so this unit can also overrun, but he gets stuck in front of them. He only overruns 1 inch. Then here, the Greater Obsidian Golem takes more damage. So that means this unit is now going to be double charged in the front by all this golemy goodness, and they're already wounded, so they're going to die next turn. And hopefully I'll kill off this Lord next turn as well, and they will continue just hiding. So turn 6 for the Abyssal Dwarves. Brockie tries to finish off that unit. Can't. The double Golem assault kills off the unit that was here successfully, and these guys are just chilling with 2 objectives, holding all the tokens, and there's not really much my opponent can do at this stage, even if it's a turn 7, which there isn't. So the game is going to end there. I'm holding all the push tokens. He's got that one. These 2 aren't actually fully in my opponent's half, but it doesn't matter because I'm still holding all of them. And the gun line, I think, whether a gun line is dealt with effectively depends on a bit of luck as well, because if they roll slightly above average, then they can start taking out huge chunks of your army. As it was, they did probably slightly below average the cannons, and the crossbows were permanently tied up shooting the regenerating Immortal Guard that had no effect on the game with their position whatsoever. So the fact that those Immortal Guard were tying up that shooting unit, the Flying King never got into the game, so he could have spent the whole time fighting the Immortal Guard, and the crossbows could have moved maybe and started advancing into a position where they could actually affect the game, because they weren't able to help at all in the long run. Cannons hit slightly below average, I would say, and when that happens, you can be struggling, because my opponent, with the way the battle line was drawn in this area here, was really relying on whittling me down with shooting before the fighting started, which looked like it might work at one stage because the 1 horde of golems went down. So I only had these 2 in there. but then I was able to block off other units from fighting while I kind of double teamed on the units that were around here, boxed them in, and got this unit with the objective. So I was always winning the scenario at that point. And then over here, the half-breeds, the plan pretty much worked over there. It worked better than I hoped it would, because the Mortars survived in the end. I don't think it really killed anything though, but it survived. And then it also worked worse than I thought it was going to, because these guys got quite unlucky in becoming wavered by the second unit of Brocks. And so that could have turned it round a bit there, which would have freed up some Brocks to maybe come in here and threaten this unit with the tokens. But thankfully that kind of evened out in the end on the side. And very, very successful scenario game. But in terms of killing, we didn't kill much. I killed more, but we only killed about 600 points each in that game. So not many bonus points available there. I did get lots of bonus points for scenario points though, so that's nice. So 2 massive wins, 1 pretty average scoring win, and 1 massive loss in total then. So that is the end of the tournament. And at this time of recording, I don't even know where I finished in the tournament. So I'm going to have a look right now and see if the results have gone up yet. Let's have a look. I'm going to open up my browser right now and go and take a look. Because if it's not up, then you're going to have to be left in suspense. I can tell you I didn't finish in the top 3. It was never going to happen with the final game. I needed to get a massive win to have any chance of jumping into the top 3. And the results for this tournament are not on the Masters page yet. And they're also not on Facebook either. So you can be left in suspense there. But if I had to guess, I would say I'm definitely top 8, I would think. Hopefully even top 6. Anything better that would be mildly unexpected. But overall, pretty tasty tournament. The army did well. And the next event is 2,250 points. So what can I add to this army? Well, I can ditch some of the items, which would allow me to take another mortar and possibly some decimators. Those are the things that I'm going to have painted by then. I've got the decimators on the table here. Just need to finish off a few of them. And I've got the other mortar sitting in the cupboard already. So I could definitely do that. I could add another Ironcaster. More options with the surging. So I've got 3 surgible units and just 1 Ironcaster, and with his heal 3 as well. It feels like it's never enough to deal with all 3 of them. I suppose it worked out okay in this tournament. The one game that I lost, obviously, didn't go well, but I think it should have gone better than it did based on the positioning of the units and plan that was in place. There were a couple of terrible dice rolls in that one. There are a couple of favourable dice rolls in the other games, but not for to swing the game hugely. The artillery in this game is possibly the only thing that was really subpar. But that's the thing with artillery. Occasionally you will have games, even now, where they have more shots. You're still going to have a couple of games now and then where they do next to nothing. I've had them happen to me plenty of times when I've taken big war machine lines. So it's a risk you take. And in the game against the Sylvan Kin, I should have lost more units, but it probably wasn't going to affect the outcome anyway. But I just got to feel bad for my opponent in that game when he only managed to finish off 1 unit. He should have definitely killed at least 1 more of my expensive units in that one. And it's going to be time to wrap this one up. So if anyone has any more comments before this video ends, then drop them in very rapidly. We're about to hide Mr. Arrow. We're about to hide me. And the next tournament is next week. I need to get my list in today, actually, so I need to finalise what I'm going to do with that. And I need to do some painting, get some more Abyssal Dwarves done. Other than that, not much coming up soon. I can't remember when the next tournament is after that. So you can look forward next week to seeing another tournament report, slightly higher point level, only 3 games in that one. And that should be a juicy one as well. think I'm going to take the Abyssal Dwarves again. I'm planning to run them for a little while, and then because it's a new edition, I'll probably try out some other armies as well at some point to add a bit of excitement. Got my Rordia, Undead, Goblins, a lot of options that I can be throwing out there. Okay, no last minute comments. We've got quite a few viewers here at the moment though. So we're going to wrap this one up. And don't forget to like the video, check out all the links in the description, give me all your money, all that kind of thing. Join the Facebook group, various social media stuff going on down there. And Dicey Guy says good luck on the next games. Well, I'll try to take that good luck with me onto the battlefield and hope for some good heavy mortar hits at the next tournament. And is there anything I'm neglecting to mention at all? I don't think so. This orc army that I've featured in the thumbnail here won Best Painted, and I definitely voted for it because, I mean, look at it. Even in this picture, which has been slightly enlarged, you can tell how good it is, and then the close-ups I had earlier, you could see. So, all that remains to be said is, good night out there. Whatever